8 days into the Texas redistricting stalemate, and it's only escalating. Moments ago in Austin, state Senate Democrats joined their House colleagues and walked out of the session. Meantime, California Democrats plan to move forward with their promise to redraw districts to their advantage within the next 10 days. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott is all but daring them to.
Know this, if California tries to gerrymander 5 more districts, listen, Texas has the ability to eliminate 10 Democrats in our state. We can play that game more than they can.
And now Democrats are getting their base into the ever-expanding redistricting game. 36 groups organizing 50 protests across 20 states this Saturday. Plans first shared with NBC. Joining us now, Charlie Sykes, MSNBC political analyst and author of the Substack newsletter, To the Contrary. Back with us, Tim Miller and Michael Hardaway. So, Charlie, Governor Abbott says he can keep this going for years. Realistically, both sides dug in. How long do you think this redistricting fight could go on?
Well, it'll go on until they get to the bottom here. Look, I mean, this is Democrats have to fight back. Democrats cannot unilaterally surrender here, but we shouldn't be under any illusions that gerrymandering is a blight upon democracy. And now both parties are saying, if you do it, we're going to do the same sort of thing, which makes it, I think, really interesting that Democrats have decided to have these rallies around the country on the issue of redistricting when they're about to do it themselves. Look, I would much rather see, if you want to have rallies, if you want to rally the base, how about rallies on the assault on science, health, the rule of law? How about rallies dealing with what you just talked about, the brute squads, mass brute squads arresting American citizens or troops on the streets of American cities? How about having rallies dealing with corruption and cronyism or the cover-up of the Epstein files? The redistricting thing needs to be fought out, but I'm not sure
your point,
that
but
this is what they should be focusing on.
I get your point.
In terms of public rallies, yeah.
I get your point, but here's what I would say. Going out in the country and for decades, literally talking to people, going door to door.
Right.
They've really learned the value of paying attention to who's running for state legislature. Yes. They understand, Charlie, that stuff that they never paid attention to before, big stuff, right? And redistricting is something probably a lot of people never paid any attention to before the last couple of months, maybe max. Here's the thing. You can say they should be protesting about this other stuff, and I'm not taking one side or another. What I'm saying is that they know that the buck often stops at the state level with their state legislators, and they didn't, from the Democratic perspective, they didn't start it.
Well, that's exactly right. And again, I want to make it clear. I think the Democrats have to, engage in this fight. They cannot simply surrender. I mean, this is an existential fight, but we shouldn't be on any illusions that people are going to, rally around, hey, let's do more gerrymandering, because ultimately the casualty will be democracy, which we're all in favor of the voters who will be deprived of more competitive seats. Look, this is an important issue. There's no question about it. The problem is right now, Democrats have to figure out what they're going to focus on. What are they going to call their base out into the streets to protest? This is an important issue. There is no question about it. But just look around what's going on here. Is this really the mountain that they want to die on? Yes, but are they going to spend their resources on this? Again, none of this is easy. None of this is simple. It's a question of prioritization. And also, I think we just need to understand how ugly this cycle of gerrymandering and county gerrymandering is, especially for those of us who have been worried about the fate of democracy for the last several years.
Does he make a good point, Michael? I mean, your former boss, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, was on MSNBC this morning. Here's his argument.
We are at an all-hands-on-deck moment. And so I certainly support the principle that we have to utilize every single tool in the toolbox in California, in New York, here in Illinois, from coast to coast.
Is there a point of diminishing returns? There are headlines in a lot of cities, Houston, Chicago, New York, critics warning that this national battle is taking time, money, effort away from other things that the American people care more about. Kind of Charlie's point.
No. Donald Trump for 7 months has led an assault on democracy, from the judiciary to the legislative branch, and now as it relates to redistricting and the question of the midterm elections. Democrats have to conduct business as business is being conducted. It is a fallacy to say, let's play nice with this guy that wants to kick us in the teeth. No. A fight is coming. We should take the fight to them instead of waiting for them to act.
No one's saying that. Nobody's saying play nice. I mean, come on, don't have the straw man here. It's a matter of what resources you do. And I want to make it clear. I think they need to fight this. They need to fight fire with fire. But let's be clear and honest about what's going on here and what the other issues are.
I want to, if I can, to get to Tim. Is there a point of diminishing returns? Because I think it does seem like both sides are pretty well dug in.
Yeah.
Is somebody going to blink?
Yeah, look, we're talking about kind of several different things here, right? The Democrats need to fight in the states where they have power to fight. You know, I think it's important that California does, what they can to try to offset the lost Texas seats, even if that's not my preferred policy. It's like, look, if the Republicans are trying to snag an extra 5-10 seats so they can hold on to the House undemocratically, then California should use the levers that they have. I talked to Attorney General Rob Bonta last week, who assured me that the Democrats weren't going to flinch on that fight. So I think that's one element to this. And I think that Speaker Jeffries is important for him as a leader of the party to be ensuring that he wants to be the speaker, the minority leader Jeffries wants to be Speaker Jeffries. And so these seats really matter to him. Now, I think there are other people and other parts of the party that should do other stuff. And I take Charlie's point on that, right? And I think that being out in the streets, protesting on things that you care about, whether it be the immigration, which we talked about in the last segment, or some of these other issues, I think that there's room to do all of that. I think that minority leader Jeffries, Governor Newsom, Governor Pritzker, they've got a job to do, which is try to offset the Republicans' efforts to take some seats.
Are they at a disadvantage, a structural disadvantage, the Democrats?
No, they can get this done. And one more thing I want to say. Donald Trump has said, I'm looking to do this in other states as well. Donald Trump is saying there are no rules. So if you're the Democrats, don't say, well, we lost, but we did it the right way. There's no such thing as a moral victory. If you're the Democrats, you do whatever it takes to protect those congressional seats so that we have a free and fair election in the midterms.